Welcome back, sports fans. Today's Wednesday, October 23rd. Welcome to the Sports Kings from Queens. This is episode 134. I'm Gino. I'm here with Kevin and Darren. You can catch us wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook. Give us a like, give us a share. Post your comments, your questions. We'll be sure to respond to you. And be sure to look for us on YouTube. We're going to be out there. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to get it started. We got a lot of sports going on. We did a separate baseball podcast about the World Series starting up, Capping Yankees Mets. Tune in for our World Series preview that we just posted up. We're going to start it with the NFL. We're going to start it with the New York Jets. Jets lose to Pittsburgh, 37-15. Russell Wilson, starting in place of Justin Fields, leads the Steelers to a victory, throwing 2 touchdowns, running for another. Despite early struggles, Wilson's strong performance helped the Steelers overcome a 15-6 deficit. Jets struggled with Aaron Rodgers throwing 2 costly interceptions that led to game-changing Steelers touchdowns. Despite the addition of Davante Adams, the Jets' retooled offense couldn't keep pace. Multiple injuries further hindered their efforts in the loss. Jets moved to 2-5 on the year. Kev, let's start with the Jets.
The comments I have written down, pick what you think is appropriate. Pathetic, pitiful, embarrassing. I tell you, watching Sunday night, I had the 2 TVs up, watching the Jets on one and the Mets on the other. I almost wish I watched the Liberty. At least they won the WNBA championship. It was the only good thing that happened in New York on Sunday night. The Jets were lousy. They were pathetic. They were an abomination. First half, they looked okay. Rodgers, that killer pick before the half by Beanie Bishop. And then throwing another one in the second half where Davante made his one presence felt was, credit to him chasing down Beanie at the goal line to keep him from scoring. Of course, Steelers scored in the next play. Like you said, Rodgers threw the ball around a little bit, but the 2 interceptions, one was not his fault. It hit Garrett Wilson in the numbers. I thought the offensive line, with the quick passing game that they called, the offensive line kept the pressure off. I mean, you never heard J.J. Watt. I give a lot of credit to Morgan Moses. You never heard TJ Watt's name. I didn't hear J.J. Watt's name either on the broadcast. But I think, they didn't run the ball. Breece Hall had 12 carries for 38 yards, 13 on the touchdown run. Other than that, I felt like he was hit in the backfield a lot on Sunday night. And the defense, just pathetic. There was no pressure except for Will McDonald. I don't know where Quentin Williams went. With the injuries in the secondary, I know they were playing without Clark and Carter and Reed, and then they lose Adams and Davis, and they're down to guys like Kendall Sheffield and Quantez Stiggers out there. But even with the injuries, you've got injuries in the secondary, fine. The front 7 has to step up, generate more pressure, and they didn't. And they allowed the Steelers to score 5 straight possessions, 4 touchdowns, 1 field goal, and turned, a 15-6 lead into a 37-15 loss. And I just don't have any words to say about them. They were just bad. Darren, let's hear what your rants are.
Oh, God. I mean, what can you say about this team? Okay, they lose 37-15, like you said. They were up 15-6, and it looked like they were getting ready to drive to go up 18-6, or maybe even, dare I say, 22-6. And all of a sudden that pick, and Rodgers said, I shouldn't have thrown it. Like, no, you shouldn't have thrown it, but you did, and you got picked off, and then that was that. The problem was the issues going into the season, we said, were the coach and the run defense. And the run defense just wore down, and it's just not very good. They do not have a defensive tackle that sits there and anchors this defense at all. Also, when you're just allowing them to throw balls up to Pickens and he's just out wrestling you for every single pass, it's not like guys were open. The corners actually covered relatively well. They just couldn't get a hand on the ball. And I know that and Sauce was banged up too. He got knocked out of the game and came back in. Everybody on the defensive backfield was hurt. But you know what? Everybody plays with injuries. So what the hell? It's part of the game. It's part of the way this thing is supposed to roll. Rodgers, I think we got a little spoiled watching Brady, thinking that all 40-year-old guys are going to be able to come out here and just be ridiculously accurate. Rodgers still makes some incredible throws. His throw to Lazard, that little floater was perfect. And he had a couple of other really good ones early to Davante, but he didn't catch one in the second half. The interception off Garrett Wilson's chest was a joke. Garrett seemed like he wasn't really into the game. The team played without any emotion whatsoever. Brees looked good, but ever since Downing calls the plays now, Braylon Allen doesn't exist. Braylon Allen doesn't even get to see the game. They also lost Vera Tucker in the game, which affected them a little bit down the stretch. Then they lost the backup to him, who I'm blanking on, and Hansen had to play. Newman, who got to who might have been paralyzed for a minute. That was a scary moment. Yeah, and so you lost the two right guards down to your third string guard. But even with that, they didn't score a point in the second half. The funny part about it is you watch this team in the first half and you see the potential of the offense. I hate to sound optimistic because this team doesn't have a lot of room for error right now. Like I said last week, and I know you guys said 10-7. I said 9-8 might sneak in. 10-7 is going to get you in. I don't know if they're going to be good enough to get to 9-8 or 10-7, but for some strange reason, I feel like this team's going to be a tough out down the stretch as they're out of it. And that's the scary, annoying part because offensively, the skilled players that this team has and the names on that offensive line should be enough to make this team good on offense. Not great, but good. The fact is that defensively, with the names they have, and now that Reddick is signed, should make them better on defense. Should be a well above average defense. It won't be great like we thought it was going to be, but it'll be above average. And yet, for some strange reason, this group of people can't put it together. They can't figure out what to do. We overblew a Patriot win. It was overblown because they won week 1 in Cincinnati, and week 2 they lost in overtime to a Seattle team that was 2-0 at the time. So we're like, okay, New England's better than we thought. No, they aren't. They suck. And we're celebrating it like we won the freaking Super Bowl after we won that game. The other game we were so excited about was the Titans. How many games have they won? Combined, these two teams have 2 wins. And the Jets, we were thinking that at 2-1 that this team was on its way, and it's not. Unfortunately, it's not. But the talent is there. They obviously this week you get the Patriots. You got to win this game and get to 3-5, and then we'll see what happens from there. But if they lose this game, it's over. I hate to say it, in week 8, it's over if they lose this game. So the talent has to come through. Devontae apparently let the team have it after the game, which I like to hear about too. But Ulbricht's got to be a little bit more fiery on that sideline. He's got to hold guys accountable. He's got to make something happen because we already had Salah. It didn't work. So we going to be their best friend also? How many best friends do these freaking guys need? Go out there and fucking play. It's just frustrating to watch. You wait a whole day to watch a Sunday night game, and on Sunday night, your team plays 2 quarters and then doesn't show up the rest of the way. G?
I now don't think you're getting to 10. So you guys better hope that 9 gets you in now. I think 7-3 the rest of the way, unless something turns around drastically, is probably the direction you're heading, which means you wind up at 9-8, and then you gonna have to hope that the tiebreaker situation goes your way.
You already lost to Denver. You already lost to Pittsburgh. 2 teams that you're going to be in that tiebreaker with.
I'm telling you, now we're 7 weeks in. You're 2-5. I looked at it. I don't think you're getting to 10 now. I think 9 is realistic, which means you go 7-3 the rest of the way. And our estimates of 12 wins are basically out the door at this point. Kev?
I mean, it's almost like I heard somebody else say this, so I'm going to steal it. I almost wish the Jets had never traded for Aaron Rodgers because he gave you that glimmer of hope 2 years ago that, hey, we have a quarterback. And it's just been as the name of the episode says here, same old Jets ? It's the same old Jets with a quarterback. I don't care if you bring in Favre, you bring in Rodgers, you draft Wilson, you draft Sanchez, you draft Arnold, you draft Geno Smith. Nothing changes. And the quarterbacking play is just subpar again.
Yeah.
Listen, Wilson ends up looking like he had a pretty good first game for Pittsburgh, by the way, if you want to look at the Pittsburgh side of it. And what you see on the other side is the head coach. You flat out see a head coach. And the reason why they like Wilson more than Fields is simply because he throws the ball with the receiver, has a chance to catch it. Fields does not throw a touch. Fields is the better player. Fields is the much better player. It's just that he doesn't throw it any touch, and the tall receivers can't do anything with it. And
Did you know? Did you know Russell Wilson throws a beautiful deep ball?
oh God, Chris Collinsworth, he talks out of both sides of his mouth the entire game. It's like watching a politician do a broadcast. But it is what it is. I mean,
He is
nothing's
freaking
ever.
annoying.
Well, he
He is.
is, but at the same point in time, he's this way every freaking week, whether it's your team
Oh,
or
he
not.
is.
He talks out of both sides of his mouth. He'll compliment something, and then 5 minutes later he'll compliment a different thing about the guy and act like the first thing he said he never said it. He's all over the place. The Jets need to recover from some injuries. They need to beat the Patriots and then on a short week beat Houston, and that's the only way that this team is. That's a tough game, and that's the only way that this team has a shot to get themselves at least in the playoff hunt down the stretch. Because right now, as great as the NBA was last year with the Knicks, and as great as hockey was with the Rangers and the Islanders fighting to get into the playoffs, and as great as baseball just was with the with the Yankees and the Mets making their run, and the way that the Liberty won for you, Kev, whatever the hell that's all about. The fact of the matter is, right now, it looks like a very long football season for us for our local teams, because neither one of these teams can do crap.
All right.
Back to you, G.
All right, we'll move over to the other New York team. Giants lose to Philly 28-3. They fall to 2-5. In his first game against his former team, Barkley dominated the Giants, rushing for 176 yards and a touchdown to lead the Eagles. Despite a lot of boos from Giant fans and a slow start, Barkley stayed focused, helping the Eagles' offense come alive. Defense overwhelmed the Giants with 8 sacks and limited them to just 119 yards. Giants are 2-5. We also saw quarterback change there for last half of the game, so we'll see if that is any indication. Derek.
Perhaps the only team maybe more embarrassed than the Jets is the Giants. This team at home is 0-4 and been outscored 93-31, and that's only because they scored 15 against the Cowboys. They do not do anything against anybody at home. Daniel Jones, once again, awful. Saquon Barkley could have had his personal best in this game, and when he was 13 yards short, Sirianni asked him if he wanted to go back, and he goes, no, let the young guys eat. Kind of a classy move from Saquon, to be perfectly honest, whether you like him or not. The Giants did not go out of their way to sign him. They told him to look for another team. The fact that he went to Philly is not his fault. I'm sorry. Get mad at him as a Giant fan. I get why you get mad at him. He's a traitor. He could have went anywhere else but Philly or Dallas, and you would have been fine. But at the same point in time, what do you want a guy to do? He's going to go where he's get the best chance to win and make the most money, and that's what he did. I mean, Locke is no better than Jones. Jones is horrible. I don't understand the media in this town's love affair with Brian Daboll. Well, he's clearly a good coach. Really? Because you lost 28-3 at home to a team that barely held on against Cleveland at home the week before, 21-16. So please, by all means, tell me how Daboll has this team prepared. They couldn't stop the run against a team that you knew was going to run. I don't understand what goes on with the Giants. 176 yards from Barkley. I mean, ridiculous. Locke isn't the answer to back up. There's a lot of things not to like. Andrew Thomas getting hurt, I know hurts them. But like I said about the Jets, everybody plays with injuries. You don't have a choice. But where's Dexter Lawrence? Where's that whole that vaunted defensive line letting Saquon run right through them? I thought it was just it was disgusting. It was hard to watch. They were never in it. That was just brutal. And this team never shows up at home. And then they go out to Seattle and win that big game. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe this team's better than I think. But I don't know. Brian Daboll, the amount of times his teams get blown out is beyond what any head coach should get blown out, in my opinion. Kev?
Eric Mangini, as you called him. How many
He's
times?
Eric Mangini blue.
Absolutely.
One year where they got into the playoffs and they won the big playoff game there, and that's what this entire coaching staff and quarterback has hung their hat on, was one playoff win against the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, the only team more pitiful than the Jets this weekend was the Giants. Daniel Jones, I don't think has thrown a touchdown at home in 2 years. We're pretty damn close. And then he takes umbrage with being benched. He had 100 yards of total offense through 3 quarters. Why the hell not try to put Locke in there just to see if he can get something going? Daniel Jones, you haven't done enough to bitch and moan about being benched because you, sir, are not a good NFL quarterback. Plain and simple.
I agree. Listen, I've been on that train for a while, so you're not telling me anything.
And at
Right.
this point, the Giants need to be. I mean, playing for a high draft pick. See if we can get a quarterback in the draft at this point. There's nothing else to play for.
We kind of figured they would be 2-5 after 7. So,
Yep.
all right. Elsewhere, Washington beats Carolina 40-7. They move to 5-2 atop the NFC East. Despite losing Jaden Daniels to a rib injury, Washington had a dominant win over Carolina with backup Marcus Mariota. Commanders' defense was impressive. Dante Fowler returning a pick 6, limiting Carolina to just 180 yards. As we go through some of these games, we're going to see that the injury bug caught on again this week and was a major factor all over the place. Now we get to some of the other big games. So Detroit beat Minnesota 31-29. Both teams are at 5-1. Lions secured a victory with a Jake Bates kicking a 44-yard field goal with 15 seconds left to boost the NFC North title pursuit. Gibbs had 116 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, along with Goff's efficient 280-yard performance. Lions overcame a late Vikings lead, extended their winning streak against Minnesota to 4 games. Darren.
Yeah, there was a game of runs. Minnesota jumps out 10-0. All of a sudden, Detroit comes back up 21-10. Minnesota comes back on the fumble return for the touchdown by Pace to go up 29-28, missed the 2-point conversion. And, basically Detroit comes down there and kicks the winning field goal with Bates with 19 seconds left. The stars played. That's what it's all about in this one. Gibbs, Goff, and St. Brown all played very well. Darnold, Jones, and Jefferson all played very well. So it was kind of one of those games where, nobody disappointed so much except for the fact that the defenses every defense is going to have a hard time stopping those big three in those type of games.
Yeah, I mean, fun game, terrific game to watch. Jared Goff now in the last 4 games, 76 for 91. That's 84% completion in the last 4 games. That's unheard of.
Wow.
He's excellent.
All right. Green Bay beats Houston 24-22. Both teams are at 5-2. McManus kicked a 45-yard field goal as time expired, giving the Packers a win. Green Bay overcame 3 turnovers to snap Houston's 3-game winning streak, with Jordan Love throwing 3 touchdowns despite 2 interceptions. From watching the game, in my opinion, this is clear these are 2 of the better teams in the league. Darren?
Marcus Stroud, 10 for 21 for 86 yards. I hadn't seen him struggle this much before. He also got sacked 4 times in the game. Houston looks like their passing game looks a little bit lost without Nico Collins. I just feel like Nico was that safety valve for him, and they're going to have to get Tank Dell involved because he's not the guy he was last year. I felt like Tank Dell opened things up, especially when you have Diggs. Mixon had a good game running the ball. A lot of good things were happening there, but the simple fact of the matter is that if they don't get Tank Dell to loosen up the defenses against them, they're going to struggle a little bit. Green Bay, listen, Jordan Love does turn the ball over, but he also makes big plays. And again, another great one. McManus signed earlier in the week, does a Lambeau leap after the game. Wasn't planned, he said, but whatever. And they win 24-22. Again, 2 good teams.
Like I said, with C.J. Stroud, it reminded me of last year against the Jets when Houston had all those injuries on the wide receiver room, and Stroud had nobody to throw to, and they were able to really contain Stroud here. I think the Packers did the same thing. That, like you said, they've got to get Dell involved, especially with Nico out.
Okay. Our 6-0 team, only one in the NFL. Kansas City beat San Francisco 28-18. The Patrick Mahomes overcame 2 interceptions, leading the team through some big plays with his feet. He was 5 for 39 yards and a touchdown. Chiefs leaned heavily on the defense in the running game, racking up 184 rushing yards, forcing 3 interceptions against Brock Purdy. San Francisco suffered a key injury, including a potential ACL tear for receiver Brandon Ayuk. That's the second star to go down in the week that we've mentioned so far. Darren?
Yeah, Ayuk's out for the year, so I mean that's definitely a crazy thing there for that team, unfortunately. The Chiefs are now a defensive football team. I don't even know how to say that. It just seems shocking. The weapons are all banged up, but the O-line is solid. They run the ball okay. Hunt is like maybe a quarter step back from Pacheco because he runs hard and he just grinds it out for him. And the defense just plays great. And, they just get the trade today where they bring D-Hop in. So that'll give Mahomes another weapon because right now he's got no one to throw to. He lost Smith-Schuster this week as well. You're throwing guys to guys like Sky Moore who can't catch. I mean, they have a bunch of receivers that just are below par. The thing about this Chief team, you say what you want about Mahomes not being accurate, then he has this amazing scramble for 31 yards down the sideline where it looks like he's going to step out, sidesteps, gets all the way in there, and then he runs over a cornerback or a safety in the end zone for the touchdown run. They just do enough to win. Andy knows how to call a game. Mahomes knows how to win games. This is not the most talented team in the NFL right now, but they are the only undefeated team in the NFL right now. Kev?
Somehow with 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the year for Mahomes. But they've Steve Spagnuolo, I think it was
he kept pronouncing his name wrong. I don't know why.
Brady, pronounce the name right. Spagnuolo.
Oh, he's the bane of my existence. That's why you announce his name wrong. He's like,
Yeah, but Spags has a Chiefs defense playing great, and on that scramble down the sideline for 31. Boy, if I'm a defender, I see Mahomes ready to go out of bounds. I'm not hitting him.
No, because you're gonna get 15.
Because you're gonna get 15, and then all of a sudden he decides, all right, I'm just gonna casually keep going. I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
You're not going to win it that way. Nope. You're 100% right.
Okay. Baltimore beats Tampa Bay 41-31. Baltimore moves to 5-2. Lamar Jackson threw for 281 and 5 touchdowns. Ravens extended their winning streak to 5 games. The Bucs lost star receivers Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to injuries. Godwin out for the year. Couldn't maintain their early 10-point lead. Yardage in the game, which was crazy stuff. Baltimore had 508. Tampa Bay had 481. Baltimore moves to 5-2. And Ravens, just some interesting points here. They are the first team to average 250 passing and 200 yards rushing in any 7-game span in the NFL. Lamar is on pace for 4,000 and 1,000. 4,000 passing, 1,000 rushing. He's the only guy that's done 3,000, 1,000. Derrick Henry on pace for 21-20 rushing, which would take out Dickerson's record from 1984. Jackson and Henry on pace for 32-25 rushing yards, which would be the NFL record. And they have the best margin of yards margin since the 1934 Bears through 7 games. With 997 yards, they have outgained the other team. There's some crazy numbers for the Ravens. Do you remember that?
I remember that Bears team very well.
Absolutely.
Darren, talk to me.
Well, just in this, Tampa jumped out 10-0, like you said. Baltimore scores 34 unanswered. Tampa made this game close with the yardage and the points by scoring 14 in the last 4 minutes to make this game look like it might have been a game. This game was never really close. The problem was Godwin got hurt in the last minute of this game, and this team had no chance to win. Listen, I'm not one to pull players and stuff like that, but you hate to see that kind of thing happen. At a certain point, it's not about Baker padding his stats, but it seems like he does at the end of almost every game, win or lose. He pads touchdowns. He pads yardage. It makes his yards look much better than they really are, but I feel bad for Chris Godwin, and I think this really – Evans is not out for the year. He's just banged up. But you feel really bad that Tampa had a good shot to win this division, and now I don't think they do without Godwin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tampa looked so good when Evans and Godwin were both healthy. They were up 10-0 in the first quarter and really moving the ball well against this Baltimore defense, which is not quite as good as it's been the last few years. As far as Godwin getting hurt, I know some of it was maybe some stat padding, but with a minute left, they've got the ball, and they're a few yards away from field goal range, at least doing the Madden trick of get the field goal, cut it to 7. They've already recovered 1 onside kick. There's only been 2 successful onside kicks this year, both against Baltimore. Strangely enough, they were still trying to win it. They were still in it to play in it. They weren't down. To me, it was not a 3-score game where you're going, what the hell are you doing? The chances of winning were, 0.1% probably, but they were still trying to win, I think.
Oh, I'm not saying that Godwin should have been pulled. I just felt bad that it happened in the last minute. But yeah. Again, though, he doing against prevent defenses looked like he's having a monster game. He was invisible in the middle of that game.
Yeah, great start. Stat padding at the end, like I said, 34-0 in the second and third quarters.
Yep.
Okay, so we have 1 6-0 team. We have 8 5-2 teams. Or 5-1 teams. We've mentioned all of them except one. Buffalo wound up beating Tennessee 34-10 this week. We also have 4 teams that only have 1 win: Carolina, Tennessee, Cleveland, New England. Jacksonville beat New England 32-16 in London. Arizona took care of the Chargers 17-15. Cincinnati beat Cleveland 21-14 in that game. Deshaun Watson out for the year. He was injured.
Yeah, one thing on that game is just Cincinnati had lost 8 straight in Cleveland. That was like getting a burden off of them, to be honest with you. That's a house of horrors for the Bengals. And for a team that's been struggling all season like Cincinnati has, for them to I know it's not great, but they went back-to-back at the Giants and at Cleveland. It could get this team kind of moving in the right direction.
Okay.
With Deshaun having the torn Achilles now, I was surprised when they went with DTR as the backup quarterback. So they couldn't play Jameis until DTR got hurt also. Then Winston came in late.
I think they were looking for the scrambling and the running kind of quarterback in case they needed it, rather than because Jameis, I think, will be the starter here as we go forward.
Yeah, he will be the starter now. Yep.
Okay. Indy took care of Miami 16-10. Darren?
Richardson sucks. 10 for 24 for 129. He sucks. This team's better with Flacco. Richardson, in case you didn't hear it, he sucks. Tua is back next week, and you almost say to yourself, really? I mean, most likely playing this week. You're going to hold your breath, even as guys that don't like the Dolphins, like Kevin and I don't, because you don't want to see this guy get really badly hurt. You just don't. He seems like a good guy. You hope and pray that the guy doesn't get serious damage to him, because he's just a little scary to see what's going to happen with him. I mean, obviously he's far superior than the great Huntley-Boyle combo that has been playing for Miami, but really a little worried about Tua. And in case I skipped it before, Richardson sucks. He can't throw.
Rams beat the Raiders 20-15. Denver took care of New Orleans 33-10. And Seattle beat Atlanta 34-14. Both teams are 4-3. To me, these are two of the most confusing teams in the NFL. They can win, they can lose. You never know what you're getting from either one of them. Listen, either one of these teams, Seattle or Atlanta, could win their respective divisions, but you never know with these guys. They win, they play really good, they play really bad, they play really good. It's all over the map. Darren?
Gino plays amazing in domes. Flat out amazing. Unfortunately, his home games are in an outdoor stadium, but he plays amazing in dome games. And the Atlanta Enigma blows my mind. Like we said in the preview in the beginning, I would like to see them got a pass rusher, rather than Penix, because, the simple fact is that they have 5 sacks on the year. I mean, they don't get to anybody, and it allows a quarterback to have all day, even with the addition of Judon. It's not enough. They need to get more pressure up there, and Cousins is inconsistent like Gino is inconsistent. It's just strange to watch. That talent on that Atlanta offense almost reminds you of the talent on the Jet offense with an older quarterback, but at least Atlanta has a couple games where they put it together. The Jets have none yet, so we'll see what goes on.
Okay, week 8 coming this week. All 32 teams in action. So that's the first thing. No buys this week. It's a weird scheduling thing. I don't know why. I don't love, by the way, any of these games. I don't see a game where it's two teams that are really playing well. Lions, Titans, Texans, Colts, Packers, Jaguars, Ravens, Browns. Darren,
on paper, the Bears and the Commanders could be a really good game, but it's all about Daniels.
Yeah.
Eagles, Bengals before the season started, probably everyone thought was going to be the game of this week. Atlanta, Tampa is still a battle for first place in the NFC South. Indy, Houston is a battle in the AFC South. It's kind of funny. And everybody can't wait. And everybody thought Dallas, San Francisco was going to be a game before Dallas really started to suck.
Exactly.
But the Giants, Steelers on Monday night, putting the Giants on Monday night, where they never win with Daniel Jones starting. I would actually play lock this week or DeVito, because Daniel Jones does not play well in primetime games. I hate to say it, but he's on the road. So maybe something happens here. It is so whack to watch that we have to watch the Steelers in a primetime again, because they're not that good either. G?
To me, the game of the week is Bills at the Seahawks. That's probably the game of the week for me.
Yeah, I don't think that's in. I think Bills will blow them out.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah.
And I don't
I'm
think
just
the Bills
telling
are that good. I think the Bills are one of the more overrated teams I've seen. I just don't think Seattle's that good either.
I think Falcons Bucks would have been really good this week, except with the Buck injuries. I have no idea who they're playing a wide receiver this week. So
I'm going to go Bears Commanders as the game of the week. That's the one I'm going to go with.
okay, Jets go to the Patriots
That's a
and
thriller.
Giants go to the Steelers.
Yeah, two thrillers.
All right. And that concludes NFL for week number 7, going into week number 8. Darren, let's go to college football.
Let's go to college football. All right. We recap of week 8 real quick. So Clemson, Navy, LSU, Kansas State, SMU, Oregon, they all rolled. Army, who's ranked, rolled as well. Kevin and I were at the game, actually. They rolled so much that the East Carolina coach, Mike Houston, was fired after the game. Actually, the next morning. I'm exaggerating. After a 3-4 start. And just as a side note, because Southern Miss never wants to be outdone by East Carolina, they fired Will Hall on Monday just to make sure that another coach was fired and that that Houston didn't feel like he was all alone. Kev?
Bryson Daly running that option offense, 7 for 10 for 147 and a touchdown, loosened up the East Carolina defense a little bit early. They were playing 9, it felt like 10 or 11 in the box, and enough passes to loosen it up. And then he started running the ball 31 for 171 and 5 touchdowns.
He looked fantastic. He looked fantastic. Navy in the same way. I didn't get into the game, but Horvath had another big game. Horvath has 10 touchdown passes. The Navy record is 13. He's going to shatter that. Both teams play out of the shotgun more than we've ever seen them play in there. It's a very different Army-Navy matchup this year. Indiana also rolled. I'm only bringing it up because they remain undefeated, but quarterback Curtis Rourke, who was having an incredible season, transferred from Ohio, he's completed 75% of his passes for 1941 and 15 touchdowns against 3 picks. He got hurt. So we don't know how long Rourke is out because that's a major blow to an Indiana team that when we talked about it in the beginning of the year, and I call him Signetti because that's the way it's supposed to be pronounced, but he pronounces it Signetti because he's from the freaking Midwest. Anyway, Indiana, they have a shot here to be competitive. They have Ohio State coming up in a couple of weeks. They need to get Rourke back. Couple other ones really quick. Missouri came back from 11 down in the 4th, 19th ranked Missouri, to beat Auburn 21-17. Auburn's not very good. Missouri's not very good, even though they're still ranked. Kev?
Brady Cook hurt in the first quarter, went to the hospital, got his ankle MRI done on that, came back, got into the game late, led them on 2 fourth-quarter touchdown drives.
Amazing. I mean, he didn't have a great game, but he did enough when he got back in. Number 6, Miami won a shootout at Louisville, 52-45. Ward, 319 and 4 touchdowns, Kev's nephew. The big problem with this Miami team is every week's a cardiac game for this team. They play in more shootouts than anybody else, Kev.
Yeah, that's what I had that written down too. The fact that it seems like they're giving up 40 points every week, that they have to score 50 to pull these games out.
I agree. Number 22, Illinois manhandled Michigan 21-7, the 24th ranked Michigan team that's no longer ranked. Michigan's not going anywhere. This team is going to go from national champion to a team that's going to have to battle to make a bowl game and get to 6-6. They have a tough schedule coming up. Number 14, Texas A&M got past Mississippi State by 10. Number 9, Iowa State escaped UCF. UCF was up pretty good in this game. They came back and scored on them late. Rocco Beck continues to do some magic in the 4th quarter. Number 13, BYU 38, Oklahoma State 35. Okie State takes the lead with 1:13 to go, up 4, 35-31. Then quarterback Jake Retzlaff leads the undefeated Cougars on an 8-play, 75-yard drive in 1:03 for the win. They completed a 4th and 7 from their own 28 early on. Then he scrambled for 24. Then he hit Lassiter for a 35-yard touchdown with 10 seconds left. How does he get open in that zone and nobody tackles him? It was like you couldn't do it any worse than Oklahoma State did it. They only a touchdown beat you, and they
gave it up.
Just gave it to him. There was 10 seconds left. I couldn't believe it. And then the 2 big ones, 3rd Saturday in October, Kev, Tennessee, Alabama. Game started off slow, 7-0 at the half, and then it was a thriller in Knoxville. I'll let you explain it, Kev, because you're the SEC guy. Go with it.
Well, it's amazing you said 7-0 at halftime. It's the 3rd straight game that Tennessee's been scoreless in the first half. Yep. They're going to need to figure that out if they want to do something coming to the college playoff here. Sampson, 2 touchdown runs in the second half, and then Nico with a touchdown pass with 5:52 left to give them the 21-17 lead. Alabama got the ball back with 2:20 left. And on the fourth down, or before the fourth down play, Kendrick Law, the wide receiver, personal foul, sets up 4th and 22. Stupid penalty on his part. They turned the ball over and down. Tennessee kicked the field goal to give them the touchdown lead, and then Milroe was intercepted with a minute 20 left. And Alabama now with 2 losses before the end of October.
They can't afford another one.
No, they're really setting up a real tough road for them.
They have to go to LSU in a couple of weeks.
I mean, I've got this week coming up here, Missouri at Alabama. And though Missouri's not that good, this is 1,000% lose or leave town match.
Of course. And the interesting thing, Alabama took the lead with 14 minutes to go. And then after that, their last drives were 2 3-and-outs, a 4-and-out, and the desperation Hail Mary interception. So they did nothing in the fourth quarter. Milroe got nothing going. Tennessee's defense is really good, as Gino's been touting all season. Gino's been the Tennessee guy. But at the same point in time, Tennessee does have to figure it out on offense a little bit. Tennessee, this week, it's not a big one, but Tennessee still has to go to Athens, and they have to go to Vandy, which is ranked. So, those are 2 tough road matchups, and Vandy's a rivalry game. Plus, they get Kentucky at home, another rivalry game. So, Tennessee couldn't afford the loss. Alabama still has to go to LSU, and we're going to get more into this next week to see who's still alive for the playoff and who isn't. We're going to look at conference, potential conference championship matchups and potential teams that could get in. One of the other things I mentioned earlier with Louisville can't afford to lose for Notre Dame. Notre Dame needs these teams that they beat, Texas A&M, the same way. They need them to keep winning, because these are good wins. And these have to be good wins for them. And Army and Navy become really important for Notre Dame, which nobody thought in the beginning of the year. Crazy game. Alabama also still has to play Auburn in the Iron Bowl. No matter what the records are, those 2 teams will always play an exciting game. And in the big one, Gino, really wasn't much of a game. Georgia went into Austin and jumped on Texas early, handily beat the Longhorns 30-15. Georgia jumped out 23-0 at the half. But to Texas's credit, after they pulled yours, they put them back in. They cut it to a 1-score game, got to 23-15. But Etienne was a little too much for him. I think he's better than his brother at this stage of their careers, to be honest with you. He runs so hard. He had 3 touchdowns in the game. Texas turned the ball over 4 times, turned it over on downs 3 other times, rushed for only 29 yards, which includes the sacks and stuff like that. Georgia sacked Ewers Manning for 7 times, 3 by Jalen Walker alone. Georgia was just a better team. They really were. They looked like the better team, and they were the better team. Kev?
Yeah, 1,000% right there, Darren. 23-0 at halftime. The ball game was essentially over. I know Texas made it look good with the 2 touchdowns there to cut it to 23-15, but it felt like they were never really threatened. I didn't think. And what was interesting, I know Kirby Smart got really pissed off when they overturned that one pass interference call, because the fans were so pissed off about it. They littered the field with the bottles and everything else. They're throwing trash on the field, and the officials huddle up and say, "Yeah, maybe it wasn't pass interference."
Well, actually, I don't think it really was, but I
don't think
it
was either. Yeah, I've never seen a pass interference call overturned.
No, that was kind of weird with a huge huddle. But again, they got to fine $500,000 for the littering of the field, by the way. And to be honest, if Texas wants to be an SEC team, you play under the lights at home on Saturday night. That game's got to be. You can't get pushed around like they did in the first half. You're at Darrell K. Royal Saturday night SEC matchup against a top team. You can't get pushed around like they did. This ain't Oklahoma. This ain't Kansas State. This ain't Iowa State. This ain't South Carolina. Well, it's Cocktober. We know what Cocktober is. So that's
Cocktober means winning football.
Absolutely. Do you want to touch on South Carolina off last week? Because they had a really impressive start, and then we'll go into this week's game.
Oh, what a start. First play of the game, Hawkins for Oklahoma throws a pick, sets up Sanders for a 3-yard run. Next drive, Hawkins fumbles, a 36-yard recovery, touchdown recovery by Tonka Hemingway, the big defensive tackle. Next play, Evan Worry, a 65-yard pick six, 21-0, 5:20 into the game. Turn the lights out in Oklahoma. They brought in Arnold back in, so they burned his red shirt. Might as well play him the rest of the year to see if you got a quarterback or not, but tough year for Oklahoma.
Yeah, this is just not a good. That's it for Hargraves. He's done. I mean, let's be honest. He's Venables. I'm sorry, wrong guy.
Venables.
He's done. He's done after this year. There's no way he gets to keep the job. Oklahoma needs to be competitive in the SEC. They will not tolerate being an also-ran in the conference.
I mean, 9 sacks and 13 tackles for loss by the Gamecocks defense.
And listen, South Carolina's got a great front. You saw what they did to LSU. This is a really good front. But you know what? You can't embarrass yourself at home again. But this was not a night game. But nonetheless, those night games really kind of freak me out when you get embarrassed at home. This week, there's not a huge slate. So just a couple of games to touch on. Ranked teams playing each other. Number 5, Texas visits number 25, Vanderbilt. I don't think Vanderbilt will be ranked for long. Number 20, Illinois heads to Oregon to play the number 1 ranked Ducks. I had said that Georgia would be the number 1 team when we got here this week. They put them right behind Oregon, so they got the 2 spot. Number 21, Missouri heads to number 15, Alabama. Like you said, this is a loser-leave town match. Loser gets that extra loss that they're not going to be able to overcome, Kev. And number 12, Notre Dame plays number 24, Navy at MetLife Stadium. And what's a really interesting game here, because this is a Navy team. This is not your father's Navy. This is a very different squad. This is going to be one that Notre Dame defensively will be right there, with Navy, talent wise. But the fact is that Navy runs a very interesting type of offense, and it's not always easy to keep up. It's going to be kind of cool to see how Notre Dame handles it. Kev, any thoughts on it?
Notre Dame, we've seen their offense struggle at times. Riley Leonard's been a little inconsistent, and Navy's going to give him fits with running this offense against Notre Dame. It's a very unique offense, as we all know. This is going to be a battle.
I think it's going to be one too. I think we're going to be in a real brouhaha. Okay, Gino,
and I think one other big game is ranked versus unranked, but I think a big test for Boise State going to UNLV. That's not going to be an easy game for Boise State to play.
I was going to mention 3 teams on upset alert. I was going to mention Boise State at UNLV. Number 3, Penn State goes to Wisconsin the week before they get Ohio State at home. That's an interesting matchup. And number 11, BYU at UCF. UCF can score, and BYU hasn't looked great on the road. So those are 3 upsets. But let's get to the game of the week. Well,
I'm sorry. BYU is actually an underdog in that game.
Hey, they are, because UCF is an explosive squad. It's kind of crazy, right? Yep. And the big one, though, Gino. We've been here before. Kyle Field, we're back. Home of the 12th man. College Station, Texas, under the lights. Texas A&M, undefeated in conference play, even though they lost their opener against Notre Dame. Plays LSU, undefeated in conference play, even though they lost their opener to USC. One of these teams will be in sole possession of first place in the SEC after this matchup. LSU is the 8th seed. Texas A&M the 14. A&M the early favorite here at 2.5. Gino, where are you going in the big game of the weekend?
Both teams coming off road wins last week. I think it'll be close. I like the home team here. Give me Texas A&M minus the 2.5.
Kevy, where you leaning?
Both teams, like I said, won 6 in a row after opening losses. A&M got Wigman back, and I think the home team has won 7 in a row in the series. I don't see this changing. I think under the lights, down at College Station, Texas A&M wins, and that of course covers the 2.5.
This is a really interesting matchup for a specific reason. LSU has a really good offensive line, even though South Carolina exploited it. Nobody else really has. Texas A&M has a great front. So it's going to be a battle of the trenches in this one. Also when you look at this matchup, the A&M quarterback, I'm blanking on his name for a second. I'm sorry, Kev. What was his name again? Yeah, Wigman. Amazing quarterback when under duress. Completes like 2/3 of his passes. When the pocket is clean, 3rd lowest at FBS, 56%. You can't explain it. LSU, when I watch Nussmeier more and more, I think he's going to be a guy that could be drafted in the NFL. I think he's a guy that could be a first-round pick in the NFL. I think he's got that kind of arm talent. I'm going to go with the dog. I'm going to take LSU on the road just because I think that they're a little bit better defensively than they were last year, which is the only reason why Jaden Daniels didn't win a national championship, because the offense was freaking ridiculous. And I think that Texas A&M struggles offensively a little bit too much from time to time. So I am going to go to the LSU Tigers to win this game, get the 2.5. I think they win it outright. Now let's go to the rest of the picks for the weekend. Start with you, my friend Gino. What do you got this week?
All right, so my first pick is going to be Kansas State minus 10 at home against Kansas. Kansas State only loss is a road loss to BYU 38-9. It's the only game they haven't scored 31 or more. Kansas State's just too much for Kansas at home. Give me Kansas State minus the 10. And my second game, I'm going back to Alabama. They're coming off the loss to Tennessee. Missouri just came off a win against Auburn. I think Alabama's just too strong. I kind of wish the spread was a little lower, but I'm going to take the home team. I'm going to take Alabama minus the 13.5. I think they come back strong after the loss last week to Tennessee.
That's okay. Cool. Kev.
Yeah, Gino, you took my Kansas State pick. I had them also over Kansas. But you picked the game. I'm going to go against you in the other one. Alabama's not looked impressive. When they've been winning, they've been escaping. They've lost 2 of the last 3.
Sorry about that.
No problem. They've lost 2 of the last
3. What's going on here? I keep shutting it down. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. Alabama's lost 2 of the last 3. I think Missouri keeps this one close. I think Alabama might pull this one out, but I don't see this being more than a touchdown. I'll take Missouri plus the 13.5.
Okay.
And in the other one, I've got a 21.5. Illinois getting 21.5 at Oregon. Just seems to be a little bit too much. I know Oregon's looked really, really good. They beat Purdue last week 35-0. But I think Illinois gives them a battle. Oregon could very easily win this game by 14 or 17, but I think 21.5 is way too much. I'll take Illinois plus 21.5.
All right. For me, I'm going to stick to the Big Ten in both matchups. I'm going to take Iowa minus 14 against Northwestern. I just don't think Northwestern scores enough. I don't think Iowa does either, but I don't think Iowa will have to score more than 24 to win this game and cover the 14. I'm going to take Iowa to win it. I think Wisconsin's going to cover the 6.5 against Penn State. Penn State might escape, but I think they're going to be looking past this one and looking forward to the big matchup against Ohio State and Happy Valley a week from now. Wisconsin's been playing better the last couple of weeks. They're actually putting points on the board. I think that this one will be a thriller up in Camp Randall. I think that Wisconsin gets the 6.5, and that's where I am. Back to you, Gino. All right. Oh, one last thing, by the way. Kennesaw State, huge underdog tonight, beat undefeated Liberty for their first win ever against an FBS opponent. So just something that just came across that's what that noise was in the background. I was trying to see what that was saying. Kennesaw State beats an FBS opponent for the first time. They beat Liberty tonight, stormed the field, the whole thing.
Wow.
They deserve it. They are not a good team.
No, so congratulations to them. Storming the field, there wasn't that many people on the field, to be honest, but there was nobody in the stand.
I've got about 25 people storming, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a big crowd, I'll put it that way.
All right. We're going to move over to the NHL. Just a couple of quick updates. Very early in the season, the Rangers right now are 5-0-1. Jersey 5-3-1. Islanders 2-2-2. A couple of hot teams. You got Winnipeg at 6-0-0. Minnesota 4-0-2, and Calgary at 5-0-1. Goals against leader right now is Winnipeg because they've only allowed 10 goals in 6 games. Goals for leader right now is the Rangers. They've scored 31 through 6 games. That's about it as far as the team perspective. Nikita Kucherov leads the NHL right now with 7 goals. Connor Helbeck with 5 victories. Darren.
Not much more to add than that. San Jose is still the only winless team. Listen, it's early in the season. We have a mixed amount of games. Who plays how many games? It always makes it hard in the NHL. There's always teams with games in hand against other teams and stuff like that. We're going to get more into the NHL deeper as soon as the Major League Baseball season kind of comes to an end. We'll get a little bit deeper into the NHL, and then we will, be able to talk a little bit more specifically about how the Rangers, Islanders, and Devils are doing, plus the other teams around the league. Kev?
Yeah, but the Islanders are really scuffling right now. You mentioned the goals against. The Rangers actually are number 4 in the league, giving up 2 goals a game. The Islanders are tied with your Calgary Flames, Darren, for number 5 at 2.5 goals a game. The difference is the Islanders have scored 3 goals a game less than the Rangers. They've been shut out 3 times in 6 games already. 2 1-0 losses, including one in overtime against St. Louis. They did squeak out a 4-3 shootout win against Montreal, going to 9 shootout attempts. Noah Dobson finally put that one to bed, but the Islanders off to a 2-2-2 start and not scoring enough.
Yeah, they need to put the puck in the net. It's that simple for the Islanders. It's been the same problem for the last couple of years for this team.
Yep.
All right.
Jake?
We'll move over to the NBA. So season started yesterday officially. Kev, we'll get to you. One betting point, just so you guys know, the over-under on Knick wins was 54.5, and on net wins it was 19.5. So just a couple of numbers to throw at you before we start this off. Knicks lost yesterday. I'm sure you'll get to that, Kev. Why don't you start it off?
Yeah. So the Knicks coming off almost like a Mets type run in the playoffs last year, or the Mets made a Knicks type run. Who knows which way you want to put it? But good season for the Knicks last year. Then they made the two big trades, getting Michael Bridges for 5 first-round picks, and then picking up Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and DiVincenzo. Early on this year, it's going to be a test with their depth, especially in the bigs, because Robinson and Achua are both out right now, probably out for about 2 months each. Is what seems to be the reports. The starting five we know is going to be real good. Brunson, Bridges, Hart, the Villanova connection. You've got OG and Anunoby. Nick's record last year with him, they were like 29-5 last year when he was in the starting lineup. And you've got Towns as the center. McBride is a terrific six-man. It's going to be a matter of, Payne and Kolek and Daddier, some of the younger guys trying to pick up some of the slack on the wings. Sims and Huckporty, a couple of other young players trying to pick up the slack in the middle, with Robinson and Achua out right now. Last night, first game, not exactly what they were looking for. They had to play at Boston, who raised the banner last night off their championship. They lost 132-109. Boston was on fire from 3. 29 for 48 they started, which tied the record. Then they missed their last 13 in a row, trying to get one more to set the record. But Boston, looked real good. And, I think they've got something going with them. I think Jason Tatum not playing the Olympics, I think it's given Boston something to feed off of for the year. But overall, I think you throw this one out for the Knicks. It was game 1 in Boston. Throw it away. Flush it from your system. I think the Knicks are still going to be a real good team this year. I think they're going to be, somewhere in that battling for that 2 or 3 seed overall come playoff time. I think it's important to be there at 2 or 3 so that you avoid Boston until the Eastern Conference Finals.
Agreed.
Darren, any thoughts on the Knicks?
Well, listen, I mean, the team is built to be a 3-and-D team. The D didn't really show up last night, but sometimes the team just shoots the lights out. You just chalk it up to one of those games where everything that Boston was putting up was going in. Knicks early on, particularly Bridges, seemed to really struggle with their shot. And, I think the Knicks will be just fine. I think Kolek's really kind of a guy that's going to be a nice glue player for this team off the bench as a young player. The loss of Hartenstein kind of hurts, I think, not having that big sometimes, not in the game that last night as much, but as they play other teams in the East that are a little bit more physical. Towns is not as physical as as a Hartenstein was. So we're going to see how that goes. But I think the Knicks, talent-wise, are definitely good enough to be the 2 seed in the East. And I think they can compete to be the 1 seed in the East. I think Boston has a little chip, but the chip falls off during a long 82-game season. Now I'll just give you a quick Nets update.
They're in the Nets. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So the opposite of the Knicks is a pure rebuild. They lost tonight 120-116 to Atlanta in a game that they were up and down in. Claxton committed a nice hard foul early fourth quarter, late third, early fourth. Started a little scuffle under the boards there. Got ejected for that. But that's the big thing of this team. Claxton, Keon Johnson, they add Bogdanovich, Shake Milton, Zaire Williams. Big losses for them with Diop, Bridges, and Lonnie Walker. Cam Thomas is going to be the go-to guy offensively for the most part. He scored 36 tonight. Ben Simmons, we're going to see what he does when he plays. You can't count on Ben Simmons, but he was a super talent coming out. Schrader, however they want to pronounce it, it's a really good point guard. As more of a backup kind of guy, not really a starter in the NBA, but he'll be a starter on this team. Dorian Finney-Smith's a nice player as well. Yeah, there's not a lot to like about this team. I mean, when you look at it, there's no real stars on this team, but you're going to get to see the young guys kind of play. And we're going to see how hard they play under rookie coach Jordy Hernandez, who did magical things with the Canadian national team. And this is his first NBA coaching job. So we're going to see how they kind of size themselves up here. If they play hard, I think they'll beat the over on that. I think they'll get to 22, 23 wins. you could see this being one of the worst 3 teams in the NBA at the same time as well, because they just don't have the talent. But I like the way that they battled against Atlanta opening night. But everybody usually comes out a little fired up opening night, so we'll see what they're able to build off of. But that's where I see the Nets going right now. G.
So that it's a good point. So, Darren, you think the Nets will get to 19.5 wins?
I think they're going to get the over.
Kev?
Yeah, I think they're going to go over.
Okay,
19.5 is so few.
I'm going to say no. Do you think the Knicks get to 54.5 wins?
Me? Yeah, I think so. I say yes, over.
Kev?
I think they get to 50. I don't think they quite get to 54.5.
Okay. I'm going to take the over on that.
Okay.
Kev?
Yeah, just a big picture. We're going to get into the NBA picks a little bit further on, but ESPN, they have 14 writers on ESPN.com, so they gave their picks. They really all over the place here. In the East, 12 of them picked the Celtics, 1 the Knicks, 1 the 76ers. Western Conference, 11 of them picked the Thunder, 2 the Wolves, 1 the Sun. And then the champion, 10 of them have the Celtics. Then you got the Thunder, Knicks, Sixers, Wolves, 1 each. So everybody's expecting, Celtics, Thunder. We'll see if we agree with that or if we're going to go and pick some other teams after we do a deeper analysis over the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. We'll see who we like.
Okay.
All right. One last thing for me, NCAA basketball, guys. Tony Bennett abruptly retires from the University of Virginia. Won a national championship. Also was one of the first coaches ever to be a 1 seed to lose to a 16. He's run the gamut, but he's been a great coach everywhere he's been. Washington State, he got that team resurged. He was a great player at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay back in the day for his father. Tony was a class guy. He'll have big shoes to fill, and it looks like Ed Cooley will be leaving Georgetown to fill those shoes. When Tony was kind of pressed on it, his big thing was he doesn't think he's equipped to coach the way the game is played now. The NIL has really affected the way he thinks he can coach. Who knows if a kid just said, "Hey, either pay me or I'm leaving." I mean, who the hell knows what happened with Tony to make him leave so close to the season? I'm glad it wasn't anything medical, as long as he's telling us the truth about that. But a lot of coaches are not going to be doing this anymore because of the way the NIL is and because of the way the game is played now. Any thoughts, boys, or anything else on college hoop? The exhibitions are underway. Opening night's 11-4. We're right around the corner. St. John's, local team, picked 5th in the Big East. I think they're a tournament team this year, so we'll see what happens. Seton Hall, the local, picked 10th. Rutgers, a lot of people like where this team could go too. I haven't seen the Big Ten actual predictions yet, but we'll see how it ends up. But it should be pretty cool here for the locals. Jake?
Okay. All right.
Okay, you had another point too, Kev, right? You wanted to bring up something else?
Let's move to the NFL picks for week number 8. Darren, we're going to start with you.
Damn it. Okay. Again, tough week. I'm taking Houston -5 against Indy. Richardson's playing. Houston -5 versus Indy. I'm going to take Buffalo -3 against Seattle. Geno's not playing in the Dome this week. I'm going to take Buffalo to win that game. My third one, I'm taking San Francisco laying 4 against Dallas despite all the injuries. I think they bounce back. I think San Francisco is just better than Dallas is right now. I think Dallas has a lot of holes in their team. So I'm going to take 3 favorites, which I hate doing. I'm taking Houston, Buffalo, San Francisco. Who's next?
Kev, you're up.
Okay.
All right. I'm starting with the Steelers at home, laying 6.5 against the Giants. Off that dud they put up last week, the Giants just don't seem like they have a chance. Steelers -6.5. Number 2, I'm taking Green Bay -4.5 at Jacksonville. Jacksonville back home after 2 weeks in London. I know they got the win last week against the bad New England team, but I think Green Bay will win this one. Love is playing real well right now. Third team, I was thinking about taking the Cowboys and going against Darren. Part of me was thinking about taking the Patriots just because I'm just fed up with the Jets right now at 7.5. I'm going to take Broncos at home, laying 10 against the Panthers. Andy Dalton got hurt in a car crash, hurt his thumb. They're going back to Bryce Young. So that's enough for me to take Denver -10 against a pathetic Panthers team.
Okay.
Gino?
My first pick is going to be, I'm taking the Eagles on the road +2.5 in Cincinnati. I like the way they played last week. I think they finally got Barkley running. I could see them doing this again this week. Hopefully their defense has enough to shut down some of the receivers with Higgins and Chase both healthy. My second pick is going to be the Ravens minus 8.5 in Cleveland. I think Cleveland's a mess right now. They're trying to put stuff together. Jameis is now coming into play. Baltimore is just rolling right now. Baltimore minus the 8.5. And my third game is a Thursday night game, which I almost never pick. I'm taking Minnesota minus the 2.5 against the Rams. I don't think the Rams are completely on this level at this point. I think Minnesota's playing really well. And I think after the loss last week to Detroit, Minnesota will look to get back on the winning track. Minnesota minus 2.5 is my third choice. Darren?
Okay, any other points before we wrap this one up, boys? All right, we are the Sports Kings from Queens. Darren here with Kevin Gino talking about the wonderful, wild, wacky world of sports. A wacky world of sports where the Jets have all the talent and still can't find a way to freaking win a game. Please sure to download the podcast anywhere you can get a podcast, whether it be an Apple product, Spotify, tune in, whatever you like. Share a lot on social. Please respond, like, enjoy, subscribe, do whatever you can, and catch us on YouTube as well. And without any further ado, may your sports be with you.